welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and the man, well, he's not seated next to me. He's seated in a whole different building than me. His name is Mike Roth. Mike, I got no made-up facts for you. I'm just happy to see you.
Oh, you. Well, here's a fun fact. This is the first time I've ever recorded myself in bed. Really. Honest.
You sure? Maybe not the first time you've been recorded in bed, though, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
You've got some VHS tapes. So, this is a weird time, of course. It seems to be getting weirder by the day. I mean, last week we were in studio talking about kind of the craziness that was going on in the world, and now we are in separate locations, kind of following this whole quarantine policy. We are in our own private, secure locations, and we're attempting something new. And so it is going to look different. It might sound different, but hopefully it's still an enjoyable product for you this week.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about the show too much. This is the first time I've worn green in a long time.
I kind of enjoyed it. I'm like, I'm going to get that green sweater out.
This is the first time you're dressed extremely casual.
Sure.
Also, there's no stopwatch, so I am not looking at any time. I'm totally trusting you that you're going to have the time correct.
We're in trouble.
Do you have a stopwatch in front of you?
I should have looked at the time we started, but that's all right. We can edit in post.
Yay!
So this week we still have a streaming spotlight, and we have some movies that aren't maybe technically on the marquee, but some movies that we had decided to talk about a few weeks ago. We decided that we were going to do this show. We did not know that it would be in this type of format, but we are kind of resolute that we're going to continue bringing you some real reviews. So I'm going to get us started with our streaming spotlight, a film that is on Hulu. It's called Big Time Adolescence, from director Jason Orley. Stars Pete Davidson as a guy named Zeke. And Zeke is the guy he was the coolest guy in high school, right? He knew where to get, he knew where all the parties were. He knew how to get the weed. He was the man in high school. Here's the problem. We cut to 6 years later. He has not changed at all. He has kind of taken in, when he was in high school, he had kind of taken in his then girlfriend's little brother. It's like he was mentoring him, this kid named Monroe, who's played by Griffin Gluck. And Monroe now is this awkward teenager who's in high school, and his best friend is Zeke. And he just thinks Zeke's the coolest because, man, Zeke offers him this kind of perception of hanging out with the cool older guy who's the life of every party. And Monroe's kind of more of the quiet guy who really doesn't know what's that. And it kind of offers him the chance to feel cool to the younger crowd that Monroe hangs out with, and kind of be a legend to a bunch of kids. And it's a movie where both of these guys are really desperate for acceptance. Pete Davidson's character Zeke he's a mess, right? I think all of us might know one of these guys who just peaked in high school and never wanted to leave that. I was the man back then. Like, well, life moves on. And Monroe just kind of, or Mo as he calls him, just wants to kind of fit in with these cool kids. And he allows Zeke to kind of influence him into doing things that are destructive, like selling drugs. You doing all right over there?
I forgot one of the key things is to plug my ears in. So you just keep on going. I'm listening. And that's right. Important. Here, you
DIY
just
right here. Zeke influences him into doing things that are like selling drugs, just being an overall jerk, and just he lacks this maturity. But the hero complex that Zeke gets from being the coolest stoner kind of helps him forget his problems. And it's I don't know. It's an interesting movie. It's a movie that I feel like gets made every generation. Kind of has one of these. And John Cryer is in this as the dad. Like, I think it's kind of funny that, a nice teen coming of age film has John Cryer in it, the king of teen coming of age films for a while. Um, and this movie kind of hits a little close to home, I think, for Pete Davidson, because he's gone through this. He's been a bit of a mess.
Actually, I don't
And
know much about his background.
so he's I believe, the youngest, or maybe second to Eddie Murphy, youngest um, uh, person to be a cast member on Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And then got engaged to Ariana Grande, and became a total mess. And now he's been in and out of rehab. Now he's living with his mom, living in the basement of a house that he bought for his mom, trying to keep himself clean because he got really bad for a while.
All right. Sorry, I hit a button. Technical difficulties, but everybody loves these. We'll put in our blooper reel. It comes
It'd
out
be
every
great.
10 years.
It's gonna
We
be the
haven't
best.
done 10 years yet.
Um,
Uh, so, yeah. I had no idea. Most of this cast, this is the first time I've seen him.
sure.
Pete Davidson, he looks really familiar. Um, I can't think of anything he has been in that I
Have
have
you
seen.
have you seen any tabloids while you're at the grocery store? Because he was on the cover of those for about a year while he and Ariana Grande were dating.
No, I tend to look at the bubble gum. Um,
Oh boy.
I'm always contemplating, should I get it? I don't know. Yeah, I just watched this movie last night, and I really like the chemistry between Monroe and Zeke. I thought it, even as creepy as it totally is, this older man uh, hanging out with a 9-year-old, a lot of it you could feel like he was still attached to the sisters. So, but it lasts for about 7 years. So, I mean, when does that friendship end? And they explain that a little bit in the movie, that Zeke needed to feel cool and he needed this young kid to kind of mentor, but his life was going nowhere. And as creepy as it might look or sound, when you're watching the film, it felt natural. I
Yeah.
think Pete Davidson, his acting was pretty good. He felt like a really confident person. Um, he was funny. It makes the movie watching him interact in his special way. Griffin Gluck, though, I feel like his character kind of switched a lot. He was either the invisible kid that's supposed to be nobody, but at the same time, he expressed a level of confidence that most kids don't have in high school. I don't know if that was because of his mentor or if it was
Well, because
because
he
of,
was hanging out with this cool 23-year-old guy, and he didn't understand that this guy's kind of a loser, actually.
yeah. And I did like the ending of the movie because it kind of wraps that all up, where a lot of movies just end with, yeah, those were wild times. This one did have a message about coming of age and becoming an adult. And I think even though they foreshadow what's going to happen in the beginning of the film, it still felt as a surprise at the end of the film of how these relationships eventually turn out. And I think a lot of people do have relationships like this when they're younger, not necessarily in such an extreme, but with that friend that you thought was really cool, and then you realize later in life, yeah, he was cool, but it's also a very unfortunate life at the same time.
Right. I think we've all, I know I have, and you hang out with somebody and you just don't realize that maybe it's being destructive to who you are, or, and you get caught at an age where you're not quite sure who you are. And,
That's still
you're
now,
kind of,
isn't it?
sure, you're kind of trying to figure out, like, I'm not quite sure who I am. And this guy seems cool. Maybe I'll just try and mimic him.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't realize until it's too late that, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best idea. But Pete Davidson, interestingly enough, this is his first lead acting role. I mean, he's basically just been on Saturday Night Live. Um, he also has a film, a Judd Apatow film that is supposed to be coming out late this year, kind of
Mm-hmm.
based on his life growing up in Long Island. And his father died in 9/11, and um, kind of curious for that, because at first I thought, well, he's just kind of a goofball on Saturday Night Live. That's what I know him from. But he actually showed some acting chops in this one, so that makes me look forward more to what he has coming next.
I'm not really familiar with the Saturday Night Live stuff. Is his character pretty much different? Because he does play kind of a goofy goofball in this one too. Is he going to be
That's
someone
him.
who's going to be typecast?
Uh, quite possibly, because that's
Okay.
really he kind of plays this. He brings this to everything. This is him, you know,
Okay.
and it's not a lot of real acting, I would say. What did you end up giving Big Time Adolescence?
I gave it a 4. I really enjoyed the film. Um, yeah, I thought it was solid. It made me laugh, made me think. And what else can you want when you're stuck inside a house?
Absolutely. I gave it a 4 as well. I've actually watched this a couple of times now over the week because it just kind of hung with me, and it offers a little bit, especially with some of the films that we're going to be talking about later on in the show. It offered a little bit of levity into my life,
Uh,
which is
just
nice.
just for the sake of normalcy, can you at least put a 4 in the corner so I kind of feel like it's the show, you
Oh, we'll
know?
take care of all that in post.
Oh,
Our
you guys
amazing,
are so professional.
our amazing producer Mara is going to take care of everything for us. It's going to be
Oh, I
incredible.
love Mara. She's
She's
awesome.
the best. Moving on, sir. Let's talk about some films. I guess maybe on the marquee isn't quite right, but that's what we're at. We had chosen a couple weeks ago, actually,
Uh-huh.
to look at some films that had to deal with the crisis that we're all going through right now. And there's a plethora of those films to choose from. What's the first one we're going to be talking about this week?
We're going to talk about 1995's Outbreak. This is Dustin Hoffman. He plays Sam Daniels. He is the movie starts off as him getting he's divorced and he is leaving his wife. There's some problems, and one of his problems is he dives so deeply into his work he really can't focus on relationships or anything else outside of his work. He has extreme paranoia too, which works out in his favor in this one because it saved countless lives. um, it is a hokey little film when you're watching. I'm sure back in '95 when people were watching it, it felt really real, felt gritty. Watching it now, it's like, well, yeah, that was actually a great case scenario that you had where all this is contained in one little town. A lot of high action that you wouldn't find anywhere else in this kind of situation. But a lot of fun. You also have Cuba Gooding Jr. in there, which I'm surprised I said correctly the first time because for some reason I step over that all the time, and makes me kind of wonder. I would like to see more of him, and I haven't really seen him a lot like we did back in the '90s. Um,
Yeah,
uh, we also have Kevin Spacey, which we all know where he's at, unemployed, and
yeah, and it's
um,
not because of the quarantine.
no, we also have uh, Donald Sutherland, who I absolutely love. It's jam packed with a lot of stars, and this was, I would assume, a summer blockbuster movie when it came out.
This was one of the biggest movies of 1995. Wolfgang Peterson. It was a massive financial success, if maybe not a critical success. Um, I mean, I remember seeing this in the theater, and this cast is crazy: Rene Russo, Dustin Hoffman, Morgan Freeman, and I like the first half of this movie in where the army doctors are trying to figure out the origin of this like Ebola type virus,
Mm-hmm.
and Dustin Hoffman's character is trying to alert his superiors, and he's dismissed. And like, go away, don't worry about it. And then Marcel, the monkey from Friends, shows up, and he delivers this virus to America in this kind of weird, convoluted plot.
That
Somebody stealing
monkey
a
was
monkey.
from Friends. I
Yeah, that
knew
was
I
Ross's
recognized
monkey,
them.
Marcel.
I thought they all looked alike. That they're just
Um,
like little monkeys.
yeah, and then you have, Rene Russo, of course, is married to Dustin Hoffman, and she becomes concerned that this is going to kill millions of people. And then it starts to come off the rails when Morgan Freeman's character as the general is um, trying to bury all this, and they're going to incinerate an entire town in
Mhm.
California.
There's
To
helicopter chases, which
it
feels
becomes all
really
very
fashionable for the
Hollywood.
time.
Yeah, it becomes very Hollywood. Dustin Hoffman running around, jumping in helicopters, and
Hmm.
all this stuff, and it's actually we're gonna incinerate a bunch of people because we want to be able to weaponize this Ebola virus, and it becomes really Hollywood hokey. Um, I do like about half of this movie though, but it feels. you know, you
I
look
got
at it
to,
with new eyes now.
I
You're
tell
like,
you
yeah,
what, when I watched this movie, it made me feel pretty good at the end.
yeah,
It's where another movie that we watched later was way too close to home. This one was, it's current, but it's so far off the rails that it feels like this can't happen. And it was such a quick and easy fix at the end of the movie, very much Hollywood. And I felt good at the end of it. Where
well, good.
some of these movies I am traumatized from.
We'll get into that in a moment. Do you have a score for Outbreak?
I didn't really think about scores. I'm saying watching it now, I'd probably give it a 3.5. It was fun enough. Give it a 3. Give it a 3.
Yeah, that seems fair to me. That's kind of where I'm at. I think it's actually in my memory, it was much better than it was on the rewatch.
Uh-huh.
It didn't hold up as strong as I remember it being. I remember it being gritty,
Yeah.
and it wasn't.
But there's a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s we really thought were gritty, and then
Yeah,
rewatch them, it's like, that
that's true.
was that wasn't as great.
Moving on to a movie that is maybe a little more gritty. It also came out in 1995 from director Terry Gilliam. We have 12 Monkeys, stars Bruce Willis. We're in this future world, 2035. A disease, a man-made disease, has come through and just ravaged the world. And now it's people are all living underground, and millions of people have been killed by this disease. And a convict, played by Bruce Willis, is being sent back in time to gather some info about this man-made virus that wiped out the population. Of course, when he goes back in time with word from the future,
Mm-hmm.
he's locked up in a psych ward because people think he's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and along the way, he discovers graffiti from this group called the Army of the 12 Monkeys. And he meets a man while he's in the psych ward named Goins, who's played by Brad Pitt. And he's got to decide whether Goins is someone who can help him, or if he's not all there himself. And this is like classic weird Terry Gilliam stuff where
Mm-hmm.
the look of it, the aesthetic of it is strange, kind of unsettling. Lots of time travel in this movie. He's all over
Mm-hmm.
the place. He's going from the early 1900s into the future. Um, and it's a film that has him kind of questioning his sanity, what's real, what's not. Um, and this is you also have Christopher Plummer in this, who I love, Madeline Stowe. Um, Brad Pitt was like kind of still a nobody at this point when he made this movie. By the time it came out, Seven had already come out, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, Brad Pitt.
Well, didn't he do a bunch of Pretty Boy movies before this?
Yeah, he
I
did like
felt like,
Legends of the Fall and A River Runs
yeah.
Through It and all these Pretty Boy movies. Exactly.
And I feel like when he made 12 Monkeys, he really wanted to try to break that image that I am more than a pretty boy. And now that I watch his current films, it's almost like he wishes he could be back to the pretty boy
We all do.
stage.
We
But
all wish we could be his Pretty Boy.
during this period of Brad Pitt films, they are my favorite. I like his more wild, crazy, out of the box normal character. And 12 Monkeys is a perfect example of him being out of his box. I kind of wish he'd go back into that. Rewatching 12 Monkeys, I can't get into it like I used to.
Yeah.
It feels slow and, again, outdated. And also so far fetched and in that kind of like German steampunk type look when you get into the future. It feels so
Right.
removed that I, again, not affected during these times when I'm watching this.
Yeah, it's another one that feels dated of its time, which is weird for a movie that's futuristic, but it feels very grounded in the mid '90s.
Mm-hmm.
What would you give 12 Monkeys if you had to give it a score?
And this is totally different score than I would have gave it earlier. 3 again. Just not really into it.
Yeah, I'd give it a 3.5, but I think I would have given it a 4 before I rewatched this.
Yeah, I think when I was brand new, I would have said best movie of the year. 5.
Sure. Moving on to our last movie on the marquee, sir, we have another film along these lines. What do we have?
Oh, uh, Contagion.
That's the one.
All right. Okay. Sorry when you say on the marquee, it just threw me off. Talking about Contagion 2011. This is the one that freaked me out, and I don't want to watch this one ever again. Or maybe when this is far, far removed. This is Steven Soderbergh directing. We have again a plethora of stars. We have Jude Law. He plays this. It's a lot of sub stories. So Jude Law, he is this guy who he has this Synethia medication that he claims is going to cure everything, and the government is not telling the truth. The main story kind of revolves around Matt Damon. He is a father who just lost his wife and his son-in-law due to this contagion that is coming around that's killing people rather quickly. Gwyneth Paltrow, he plays uh, his wife, who is the pretty much ground zero,
Right.
and the story revolves around each day. They show a little synopsis of her working from when she is starting to come back into the area where she lives, but you knew she just came from Japan just a little while ago. Um, we have
Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet. She is pretty much the main star that you follow around, and she is the scientist that is researching and trying to find out where this came from, so that we could piece all these things together. It is a fantastic movie that is way, 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 way too close to what's going on now. Even coming back around to where it originates, where they say it was a mix between a bat and swine. This one is supposed to come from a bat. It's definitely not as aggressive. The what's going around now is more selective to people who of a certain age and health. And where the contagion in this movie seemed to get everybody that it
Yeah.
could, and it was terrifying. And
Yeah, it feels
at the
like
end
a
of this
blueprint.
movie, yeah, at the end of this movie, I did not feel comfortable at all, and I still don't feel comfortable. It's still working on me.
Yeah.
And so, what
This
did you
one,
think?
it feels much more realistic. It feels like an ominous premonition that
Yeah.
came out in 2011. And I like things that it shows the brilliant minds around the globe that are working together on this. And it shows the spread of this and how
Hmm.
scientists are almost like detectives
Yeah.
trying to figure this out. And I think this movie does a really good job of building tension and fear and kind of chaos. Um, and it builds in a way that you're not sure which of these major stars that we're talking about is going to survive in this movie.
Hmm.
Um, and you have the government limiting information. And Jude Law's character, you're always, we see it now. You have people that are deniers and
Profiteer.
people, yeah, and people who see through the media. And you have how rumors and confusion lead to panic and irrational behavior amongst people. And this movie doesn't pull any punches. And I like Lawrence Fishburne, I think it is, has a line in this movie that says, "Look, in order to get sick, all you have to do is come in contact with a sick person or something they touched. But in order to get scared, all you have to do is come in contact with the media." And I was
Hmm.
like, "What? That's hitting close to home right now." And I think Marion Cotillard, who is an actress I absolutely adore, I think she's great in this. Is uh, kind of the head of the European side of this, trying to discover it, and it feels like a roadmap for what we're going through right now. The quarantines, the search for a vaccine that takes us to some questionable ideas. And I remember really enjoying the intensity of this film when I saw it in theaters, but I never thought that it would come true in my lifetime.
No, and
That didn't cross my mind.
some of these shots that they had, like there was a sick person that Gwyneth Paltrow worked with, and he's in the bus, and he's like that one weak link, and if they could just find him, and they see him get sick, and he's touching everything, and they make
Right.
sure that the audience knows, yeah, he touched this, he touched that, he
And
touched
you're like,
this,
oh.
yeah, and it makes me think on a daily basis right now. It's like everything I touch, and I have my stupid little Clorox wipes and stuff like that, and I wipe something, I touch something else, and I'm like, well, that was pointless. It's impossible not to touch things.
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Don't leave the house, Mike. Do everything remotely, just like this show.
Well, I'm essential.
You are.
So are you.
Uh, what would you give Contagion as a score, sir?
um, tell you what, I'm giving it 4.5 right now, just because I'm really, if you want emotional intensity, I'm going to say 5 right now. But as a movie itself, I'm sure it's a lot lower than that. But it strikes home so much right now that it feels more important than it probably really is.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Unfortunately, yeah, I would give it somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5.
Yeah.
An enjoyable movie.
What
All right, we
What
have.
do you think you would have gave it at the theaters back when you saw it in 2011?
I think probably 3.5 into a 4. It's probably a
Yeah.
half star higher now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we have 5 minutes left, sir. Let's get into our movie throwback. A movie that I gave to you that you had never seen before.
Never. I'm talking about the Golem, 1920 silent film. It's a German film about a Jewish community that is under pressure from the hierarchy, and they're going to get kicked out of the ghettos. And well, darn it, stupid phone. Um, and in order to protect himself or his people, the head priest, Rabbi Lau or Low, they didn't say it out loud. I have to read everything. Um, he makes a clay golem that is sent to protect the people. He has to go through a ritual, and according to the ritual, at a certain time, the golem does it doesn't protect anymore, and the rabbi shuts it down through jealousy. His assistant brings it back to life in order
Yeah.
to kind of break up a love affair that probably shouldn't have happened, that was really looked down on, and it kind of has this Frankenstein feel. What I
It's
love,
this movie influenced the first Frankenstein film. In fact, they
yeah,
shared the same cinematographer.
it really shows. It really was a beautiful movie to watch. People now would look at it and go, "Wow, that looked really hokey." But you got to put yourself in the mindset of 1920,
1920.
and
It's 100 years ago.
100 years ago, and what they did in order to bring this entire village to life was just amazing. Some of the architecture in there was absolutely beautiful. The golem did not look menacing at all, because they did with what they could. You could tell it's paper mache. Some of the silly things of carrying around a clay statue and it looked like you're carrying around paper mache
Yeah, you're carrying around a
felt
pinata.
silly. But when you look at, this was made over 100 years ago, and what they did with the technology back then, I thought it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I really enjoy this movie. Writer, director, and star Paul Wegener. This was actually his third attempt at making this movie. He made it in 1915. He made another one a couple years later. This is the only one that survives. So he decided to remake it, basically, because film stock was temperamental
Hmm.
back then. And I think it looks really good for the time. You look at what he was capable of doing with effects and set design and everything and storytelling.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a strong movie for if a 100-year-old movie. It works really well for me,
Yeah, I completely agree.
and it's just a Frankenstein story.
I, Now, I know we didn't go to Marcus Theaters, but I still want to say thank you to Marcus Theaters.
Of
I'm really
course.
concerned. I'm really concerned about them. Everybody's having hard times, and I am curious on how things are going to go back to when they were, and hopefully
We'll
it
get there.
happens really soon.
We'll get there
I'm
eventually. We do want to thank Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie, still for sponsoring this program. The lights on the marquee are off for now, but they will be back. I've been going through some withdrawals. Might be the longest I've ever gone without going to the theater. I in my downtime, my the reptile part of my brain is like, you should go to the theater. I was like, yeah, I should. Oh, I can't. Oh, this is no
if
good.
if it feels really weird. I miss seeing movies at the theater. It
Absolutely.
really, it can't be replaced.
No. Next week we have a couple of streaming films. Uncorked, which is on Netflix, starring Courtney B. Vance. On Amazon Prime, there's a film called Blow the Man Down, which I've been hearing great things about. we're also going to talk about another film that I've never seen before, which would be fun. And just keep an eye out because there's several studios and several streaming services that are releasing things early, kind of pretty regularly. So,
Hmm.
keep an eye out on these streaming services. There's a lot of gems being put out there right now because they can't be in theaters. So,
Yeah.
we'll be talking about some of those next week. Um, we just want you, you can stay in touch with us on our social media. We're always posting things on Facebook, sometimes on Twitter, and we just hope that this worked out. This is a fun little experiment. We're going to be doing this for the foreseeable future, trying to keep our routine while keeping far apart. And if it works out, maybe we just stay with this. Maybe we don't
Yeah.
have to sit in the same room ever again.
Well, hopefully I won't do the thing with the earbuds and yeah.
Next week will only be better. All right, sir. I'm looking forward to doing this again next week. But until that time, I'm Jamison.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.